Welcome to Trending Update USA. I am Steffan, and tonight we are diving into one of the most talked about statistical storylines in the entire 2025 WTA season, a storyline that has both shocked analysts and fascinated tennis fans worldwide. Coco Gauff finishing her 2025 professional season with more than 400 double faults. A statistical outlier that has sparked widespread debate across the tennis landscape. What makes this number so striking is not simply its magnitude but the context in which it unfolded. Gauff has delivered some of her strongest baseline tennis this year, reached deep into tournaments, produced highlight reel moments, competed with top 5 athletes week after week, and yet the service inconsistency remained an open wound throughout the entire calendar. As we unpack this, it's important to understand that Gauff's 2025 campaign was far from a failure. In fact, several of her runs, including her semi-final appearance at the Australian Swing, her electric battles in Dubai and Miami, her gritty clay season performance, and her hard-court push during the summer, all demonstrated the continued evolution of one of the youngest superstars in women's tennis. But the service issue, the double fault metric specifically, became the statistical anchor that followed her from tournament to tournament, turning into the most discussed number on sports talk shows, commentary panels, and online fan debates. It became a lens through which every match was evaluated, regardless of outcome. To put this into perspective, double faults generally indicate either technical instability, risk-heavy serving patterns, mental tension in key moments, or a strategic overcommitment to aggressive second serves. For Gauff, analysts have spent months trying to determine whether her high fault count reflects an intentional tactical gamble, or a deeper mechanical issue that has not been fully resolved. Critics argue that her toss has remained inconsistent for years, that the torque on her motion causes timing breakdowns, and that the pressure of her high-profile matches amplifies these inconsistencies. Supporters counter that her serve, while flawed, remains an offensive weapon when it lands, producing aces, forced errors, and point-ending opportunities that align with the modern power baseline template. What complicates this debate even further is that despite surpassing 400 double faults, Gauff still managed to win many of the matches in which she committed enormous numbers of them, demonstrating that her athleticism, defensive reach, forehand aggression, and improved return game often compensated for her service errors. There were matches this season where she hit 10, 12, sometimes even 15 double faults, and still walked away victorious because she dominated rallies, counterpunched with precision, and showed the mental resiliency that has trademarked her rise since 2019. That paradox, high double faults yet steady winning, became one of the central narratives of her season. Coaches, analysts, and former players weighed in throughout the year, offering both critique and perspective. Some suggested that Gauff's camp was intentionally experimenting with a more aggressive second serve to keep points shorter and reduce physical load across the season. Others believed the high numbers reflected systemic pressure created by increasingly powerful returners on tour. Several big hitters, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Osaka on her comeback, Andreescu, Jeune, Rybakina, have shifted the tactical landscape, forcing players to serve closer to the lines and hit deeper, riskier targets simply to stay in control of the point. In that environment, conservative second serves are punished easily, and perhaps Gauff felt compelled to elevate her risk profile. Yet what stands out across the season is how consistently the topic followed her. During interviews, journalists delicately but repeatedly asked about her serving mechanics. Commentators circled the issue when analyzing match replays. Data scientists posted graphs charting her serve speeds, toss heights, and double fault frequency by surface. Social media amplified every match where the numbers ticked higher, creating a parallel narrative that often overshadowed her victories. Even when Gauff played beautifully, the service story lurked behind, as if waiting for the next misfire to reignite the conversation. The turning point came midsummer, during the sequence of high-stakes American hardcourt tournaments where Gauff's serve faltered in several tight matches. In Washington, she pushed deep into the draw but stranded herself with crucial double faults in decisive moments. In Cincinnati, she posted one of her highest single-match double fault counts of the entire season. At the U.S. Open, she played extraordinarily well in early rounds, using her athleticism to dismantle opponents, but once again the spotlight fell back on her serve when she struggled in service games against relentless returners. Even though she advanced impressively, the narrative persisted: when would the double fault stop, or at least diminish? Coaching adjustments were visible. Throughout the season, Gauff's team worked on lowering her toss to produce a more controlled strike zone. There were attempts to shorten the motion, reduce internal rotation, and minimize overextension of the shoulder at the apex of contact. In practice footage captured by fans and analysts, she appeared to drill serve mechanics for extended sessions, sometimes serving dozens of second serves in a row focused purely on stability. Small improvements did materialize at times, particularly during the Asian swing, where her double fault totals per match dropped for a brief stretch, but the underlying inconsistency resurfaced later in the season, culminating in the final tournaments where the serve again became a decisive factor. Players across the tour reacted with empathy and candor, acknowledging that serving challenges are among the hardest technical obstacles to fix under pressure. Aryna Sabalenka, who famously battled severe double fault issues earlier in her career, offered supportive comments during press conferences, noting that improvement comes gradually and that the mental component is often more important than the mechanical one. Other players, including Jessica Pegula and Ons Jabeur, emphasized that even world-class athletes go through technical slumps, and that the aggressive playing style of the modern tour inevitably produces risk-heavy serving patterns. The statistical magnitude of crossing 400 double faults, however, is not something easily ignored. That number represents not just a technical challenge, but a psychological load carried across 11 months of competition. Every time Gauff approached the line for a second serve, the cumulative weight of those faults hung in the air. And yet, despite the scrutiny, Gauff never retreated into passive tennis. She did not resort to soft second serves. She continued to hit aggressively, signaling both confidence and a commitment to the long-term payoff of technical refinement. As the season closed, sports scientists offered more data-driven analysis. They pointed out that Gauff's serve motion, which has improved significantly since her junior days, may still contain biomechanical inefficiencies that amplify under stress, particularly during high-velocity rotational sequences. Tennis biomechanics specialists highlighted her upper body sequencing, noting slight delays between torso rotation and arm extension that can destabilize timing, especially when attempting to produce heavy spin second serves. These micro-delays, they argue, cause mistimed contact and inconsistency in trajectory. Yet despite this avalanche of expert evaluation, one fact remains central: Coco Gauff is still one of the most promising, accomplished, and mentally resolute players of her generation, and a year with over 400 double faults did not derail her competitive presence or her ranking. She remains a perennial title threat, a fan favorite, a marketing powerhouse, and one of the most watched athletes on tour. The serve is a chapter in her development, not the defining story of her career. In interviews at the end of the season, Gauff addressed the issue directly, demonstrating maturity and analytical clarity. She emphasized that improvement is ongoing, that she and her team have identified specific mechanical targets for the off-season, and that she views the serve narrative not as criticism but as an opportunity. She acknowledged the frustration but also expressed optimism, noting that players evolve year by year, and technical challenges often precede breakthroughs. She cited examples of other top athletes who overcame similar obstacles, reinforcing that the arc of elite performance is rarely linear. Her message was simple: she is working, she is learning, and she is determined. Public response to her statements was overwhelmingly supportive. Fans praised her transparency, her willingness to confront criticism, and her resilience through a season where every statistical misstep was magnified. Analysts, too, recognized that despite the double fault surge, Gauff's overall game sharpened significantly. Her backhand defense, her inside-out forehand, and her court coverage reached new levels of sophistication. Many pointed out that if Gauff had produced even a moderate improvement in second serve reliability, several close matches might have swung in her favor, potentially altering the outcomes of key tournaments. That realization underscores both the challenge and the potential. A corrected serve could elevate her from a consistent top-tier player to a dominant multi-slam contender. As the tennis world now looks toward 2026, speculation about Gauff's off-season training becomes a major storyline. Reports indicate her team is conducting a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation of her serve, involving sports biomechanists, video analysts, and technical consultants. The goal is precision, reduce variability, improve shoulder alignment, stabilize the toss, and recalibrate strike timing. If successful, these adjustments could fundamentally change her risk profile and transform her service games from volatile to reliable, unlocking new tactical dimensions in her matches. And so, as we close this extended look at one of the defining statistical anomalies of the 2025 WTA season, the central narrative becomes clear. Coco Gauff's 400-plus double faults are not a symbol of collapse but a data point in an evolving career that continues to show brilliance, resilience, and future promise. The serve is a challenge, but the foundation of her game, athleticism, intelligence, firepower, and competitive grit, remains as strong as ever. If the off-season brings even moderate improvement, the 2026 campaign could be one of the most fascinating storylines in modern women's tennis. For now, fans, analysts, and the tennis world will continue watching, waiting to see how one of the sport's brightest stars responds to a season defined not by failure but by a compelling intersection of adversity and potential.